Sonic Prime is a show revolving around Sonic destroying the Paradox Prism, sending his friends into multiple different shatter spaces with each of them having different personalities and looks. Sonic has to find all the pieces of the Paradox Prism whilst trying to save each shatter space from the Egg Council's rising power. But one thing that goes unspoken is the fact that Sonic and Shadow don't have any versions of themselves in the Shatterverse's different shatter spaces. Sonic not having one kinda makes sense as he needs to explore and save people as he was the one to shatter it. But Shadow wasn't near the Paradox Prism when it shattered, meaning that he wasn't sucked into any of the different universes. But what if he was? And what if Sonic somehow was too? Well, today I'm going to go over what I believe Sonic and Shadow's alternate characters could be like if they both were sucked into different shatter spaces just like Sonic's friends. Firstly, I'm going to go over to New York City, the first universe Sonic gets to after shattering the Paradox Prism. Other characters seem to have different personalities, like Nine, the alternative version of Tails. With no Sonic there to save him from the two foxes bullying him, he had to fend for himself, making him keep to himself more and not trusting new people. This can be seen when he originally tries to kick Sonic's ass once they meet, but after Sonic saves him, he realises he isn't that bad of a guy. A trend shown in this universe is the good characters feeling the complete opposite or acting the complete opposite to how they are in their actual universes. Another example of this is Rusty Rose, New York City's version of Amy. She literally works for the Egg Council and her main task is trying to catch Sonic to bring him back to them to perform tests on him to extract his power. Would you expect that out of Amy Rose? Hell no. However, Knuckles and Rouge are working to try and take back Green Hills from the Egg Council, protecting a tree underground as its last symbol of life, and personally, I think Sonic would be a part of this organisation too. The trend that goes on in the show is that Sonic likes to not listen to what people say and rebel. Another great example being when they're battling Eggman back in Green Hills. Eggman begins to lift up the Paradox Prism and Sonic rushes to stop him from doing so. As he's running, all his friends tell him to stop and that he shouldn't attack the prism, but what does he end up doing? He attacks it. So the thought of Sonic being told that a new council of Eggmen have decided to take over Green Hill and he's just going to have to sit and obey what they tell him to do doesn't sound like something that he would do. I imagine he would be wearing the same sort of clothes that Knuckles and Rouge are as well, and he would act alongside them. Moving on to Shadow. I feel like Shadow would also be working against the Egg Council, not as a part of Sonic, Rouge and Knuckles' team. I feel like he would work solo. The reason I think this is the Season 2 trailer. Shadow tells Sonic that in order to fix Green Hill, they'll have to work together, which is something he obviously doesn't want to do, but he sacrifices what he wants to do for what he has to do to get his home back. This shows that his will to get his home back is larger than his hate for Sonic in the show, so he'll break what he would usually act like if it means it gets his home back, and in the case of the Egg Council, I think he'd try to take them down on his own as he probably would still refuse to join their team. Visually, I think he wouldn't look too different from what he usually looks like. Maybe like a slight difference in his shoes or a slight difference in his gloves. Nothing too major. With New York City done, let's move on to Boss Cage Maze, the jungle shatter space. This shatter space is Green Hill being turned into a giant jungle using the power of the green prism shard. Thorn Rose, this shatter space's Amy Rose, is dedicated to preserving the nature that is left, which ends up kicking all of her friends into making their own village on the top of a tree. This leaves them starving since there's no food, making them sneak back onto the ground floor to try and find food just for Thorn to kick them out again. In comparison to New York City, everyone seems like the actual versions of themselves. Amy is trying her hardest to preserve nature since she loves nature a bit too much. Due to Amy making friends with a giant monster, it's hard for all the others to get food without the monster attacking them. They seem to still act like their usual selves though, but they're just hungry and don't want to anger their friend, mainly out of fear of our unusual pet. I feel like in this shatter space, Sonic would be how he is with everyone on top of the jungle. Friendly, kind to them, and trying his hardest to show Thorn what she's doing to everyone and how, although it makes her feel good, she's alienating all of her friends and starving them. I imagine like New York, Sonic would look around about like what they do too. Not just his gloves and shoes, but things like Tails and Knuckles having accessories like a belt, hat and other stuff. Moving on to Shadow, this is a hard one. In my opinion, I feel like Shadow would not fit in anywhere in this story. He doesn't seem like the type to just obey what Amy has to say, but at the same time, he doesn't seem like the type that would take Amy's place and care for all the nature since it's Shadow. Nature is probably the bottom of the list on the things he would potentially care about. After thinking about it, I feel like he would make sense being in the whole club above the jungle, but I imagine him being pessimistic the entire time, complaining and making it painfully obvious that he does not want to be there in the slightest. For his luck, it would most obviously be like the rest of the crew. He could have the things that Knuckles has over his dreads as the rings on his arms, grassy looking gloves, grassy looking shoes, etc. Now, let's move on to No Place, the version of Green Hill that is flooded, making Sonic's friends resort to becoming pirates, having to sell the seas since that's the only thing they can actually do there. Knuckles the Dread is the captain of the ship, whilst Baton Rouge, Black Rose and Sails Tails being his shipmates. Whilst on board, Sonic discovers that Knuckles is actually a coward when his previous crew attempts to attack them, and he just ends up hiding from them. Sonic defeats them all and they all make him their new captain straight away. This moves on nicely to what I think Sonic and Shadow's counterparts would be like. I imagine Sonic would actually be the captain of the ship if he was there originally, being able to fight off any other pirates that attempted to attack them. His look would be similar to Knuckles the Dreads in my opinion, with him obviously having the captain's hat. I imagine he would also have the little suit jacket thing Knuckles has, as well as different coloured gloves. Maybe something like gold, black, and I don't know. Shadow. I imagine he would be a part of Knuckles' former crew, trying to get back at Sonic as he hates him, as well as being the leader of that crew since, you know, it's Shadow. I don't think he'd be able to handle not being the leader of the crew. This could also mean that there would be more opportunity for Sonic and Shadow fights if they also somehow got sucked into the universe, since Shadow would for sure not miss the opportunity to attack Sonic's ship whenever he can, and Sonic would definitely fight back. Shadow would look like the rest of Knuckles' previous crew, with him having an eye patch, lots of darker themed clothing like brown, black with the red in his shoes gone, and just having like the captain's hat, you know, just overall looking like a pirate. And yeah, that's what I think every Sonic Prime variant of Sonic and Shadow would look and act like if they were also sucked into the Shatterverse and were all a part of the different universes. Thank you all for watching, subscribe for more, goodbye.